Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explained here, bringing you guys the review for Boruto episode 160. And I gotta say, man, like the number one takeaway that I'm taking away from this episode is you're seeing exactly what Sasuke meant a few episodes back. I want to say it was in episode 158 where Sasuke tells Boruto, like, you really can't go on any type of missions with me. I'm paraphrasing what he says, but he says, you know, you really can't go on any type of missions with me because you're not experienced enough. You need to get more experience before I can really keep you around. The best thing you can do right now is go on your normal missions and rack up the experience. And in this episode you see it a couple times, and I like how they go out of their way to show you that on one hand, Boruto following his instincts leads to things working out for the better. However, on the other hand, following his instincts also gets Boruto into something that's a bit of a jam. So what I really find interesting is the fact that one of the things that you actually end up seeing is the fact that when Boruto is talking to Mugino tells him, like, look, you know, this is a mission that normally I wouldn't have Ganning on this mission with me, and Konohamaru tells him it's really in your best interest to not act out, make sure you follow everything by the book, don't get brash, don't try and be a hero. And yet once we get into the land of silence, Boruto on more than one occasion does just that. Like when they first enter into the territory, he runs off, he ends up springing a trap. Then once they get in there, once Boruto sees the headbands, Boruto gets all up in his feelings and he's like, oh, I thought that the headband of a shinobi was their most valuable thing. And he's doing small things that could tip him off to somebody who's watching the fact that Boruto is a shinobi. And then once they get into that pawn shop, for lack of better words, Boruto also gets into a situation where yes, you have to act quickly in that moment, but jumping into a situation where you're fighting the enemy alone and you have no idea of the circumstances you're in, that's not a good play to make. It worked out for Boruto because after Boruto takes out the two thugs that are dispatched, he gets up to the shop owner, pulls out his kunai, puts his kunai to the guy's throat and says, you want to talk to me now? That worked out. However, once it comes to that medical ninja that Boruto goes under the transformation jutsu and fools him with the sexy jutsu and everything, once they get into the point with the kid, Boruto, it doesn't work out for him because you're in that situation where Boruto has to drop his cover. That's the one thing you don't do when you're on a mission. You don't break cover, and yet Boruto breaks cover, and basically the guy ends up pulling out his medical weapons and is preparing to fight Boruto, spits out a few of those needles at him, and then that draws a crowd. Now you have people who know, oh, there's shinobi out here. Like, it's one of those things where on one hand it worked and on the other hand it didn't. So I like how you see little small stuff like that lets you know that if that had been Konohamaru and Mugino by themselves, they probably could have wrapped this mission up a lot sooner. And yet I found it very interesting that, you know, Konohamaru says that this is a mission given to us directly from Lord 7. And the thing you have to keep in mind with Naruto, and I haven't done videos talking about this yet, but the thing you have to keep in mind is the fact that Naruto's really big on wanting his son to get real mission experience. That's the whole reason why Naruto allowed Boruto to kill Momoshiki, because Naruto, according to I believe the Sasuke Shinden novel, was getting ready to kill Momoshiki, and then he figured it was best for Boruto to do it, that way Boruto gets a taste at real battle. I think that this is another thing right here. Naruto wants Boruto and Sasuke's kid Sarada to be in a situation where they're gaining experience, because I think at the end of the day Naruto realizes that they're going to be good assets to Konoha. Now backing up a little bit, I like how, you know, they do give us quite a bit of information on the Land of Silence. It's stuff that if you've watched my Land of Silence explain video, it's stuff that you already know, but I like how in the Boruto era they kind of connected back with Gingo and say Gingo used to rule this part of the Land of Silence, but it's fallen into chaos. It was a little bit of peace for a while, and then things just imploded after the fact, and you see all these people who are in the bingo book hiding out here, and Mugino, you know, he corrects Sarada. Sarada's like, shouldn't we go and capture these people? And that line of thinking right there, as well as the response to that kid that was caught stealing, it just shows you that Boruto and Sarada, when it comes to a mission like this, they're out of their element. They're really out of their element. And so I like how they're getting a real dose of what's actually going on out there in the ninja world. And you know, there are a few times I was worried that their inexperience would end up blowing their cover altogether, but you know, that's why you have those two experienced Jonin right there that have done missions like this, because like I talked about in the past, Naruto handpicks Konohamaru and Mugino for a lot of these missions. That's why you don't see Konohamaru on every single mission that you see Boruto and Sarada and Mitsuki on. So I thought that this was interesting that, you know, we're seeing just the further fall in descent that we're seeing in all these other lands, and the fact that Kara has a foothold here. So not only in the land of valleys where you think that everything's all peaches and cream, but also in a land like this that has basically been overrun by rogue shinobi. So I thought that that was a really nice touch right there, and I like how they even dropped a few Easter eggs towards what Kodachi had been talking about when Kodachi, in one of the articles he does at the end of the manga volumes, it's something he's doing probably for like the last 5 or 6 volumes, but he talked about the fact that, you know, in the areas that Kara runs, including sections of the Land of Fire, there's a huge drug problem, and what you end up seeing is you're basically walking down Skid Row here, where you see a bunch of the villagers in the Land of Silence. They're strung out on these drugs. A lot of them, they're not and sleepy headed. Some of them look like they're homeless. Like, you're seeing that everything that Kara's touching is crumbling. In some cases it's behind the scenes, like with Anato in the Land of Valleys, where people were being experimented on and the people in the Land of Valleys had no idea, but also here in the Land of Silence, where it's completely okay, where nobody bats an eye at the fact that there's somebody homeless or there's somebody that looks like they're nodding off because they went and chased that monkey, if you will. So I thought that that was interesting right there to see that little bit of element there, because again, that's just more world building right there, and that's just doing a better job at better setting up how dangerous the threat of Kara is. And so the other thing that I found interesting about this is that, again, you know, after you get past the fact that they're really going out of their way to highlight how inexperienced Boruto and Sarada are, the other thing is the fact that you look at Mugino, and they're doing a really good job at developing his character, because we're seeing different aspects of his character. Like when Konohamaru goes into that bar with them, and you see how Boruto and Sarada, you know, they're freaking out because this is an adult establishment basically, and you know, Konohamaru's got the goofy look on his face, like, oh yeah, I'm about to bust all kinds of nuts. That's what Konohamaru was thinking, right? And it was like, oh shit, I got kids here with me, hold on. And so Mugino says, behave yourself. So we're seeing like a little bit of the guy's quirks a little bit, and so I thought that that was cool. You know, those of you who read the manga know, you know, Mugino has a moment that's coming up, and so it's really nice to see that we're actually getting some development of the character. I'm glad that we're actually seeing more with this character. I mean, this is something I've said for a long time. Like, the Boruto anime does a really good job at fleshing out stuff that takes place in the manga, and so I gotta say that that was nice to see. Also, like how, you know, they're also planting the seeds to let you know that there's something more to Victor here. Like, you should have already known it based on what happened in the Land of Valleys, but the fact that as they're hunting down leads for the Hashirama cells, you actually see a moment where one of the medical ID badges of his employees is offered up at the pawn shop. So that was your clue right there that there was more to Victor than meets the eye. And again, that's another person who has been better fleshed out. And I like how, you know, when they talk about the Hashirama cells, you know, they make it very clear that in order to use Hashirama cells, you have to have somebody very skilled in medical ninjutsu, and that's actually in line with what you're getting in the Naruto franchise. When it comes to Hashirama cells, every time we've seen it, it's always had to be somebody who knew what they were doing when it comes to medical ninjutsu, whether it be Tsunade creating the arm for Naruto, as well as Sasuke just turned this down, or whether it be Orochimaru making the Sharingan arm for Danzo and using Hashirama cells in order to do it. I'm glad that they kept that little element in it, but I also thought that, you know, the way that they ended the episode was pretty brilliant, because I mean, it left you wanting more, because I was like, damn, is that all to the episode? But, you know, the other thing on that is that, you know, once they capture the medical ninja and everything, and they camp out in the woods until 6 a.m. and then they go and they meet on the bridge, you know, what you end up seeing is that this Butler, who, if you can't tell, this is an outer member of Kara because he's directly serving one of the inner members. It looks like it's going to be Deepa based on the episode preview. And so what I like about this moment right here is that you get this scene where after he sizes them up, you can tell, and Mugino picks up on it right away, and Mugino picks up on the fact that the guy's sweating, the guy's shaking, and he can start seeing the veins pop out, and he's like, something's getting ready to happen. And sure enough, we find out that the person who has a Hashirama cell is actually gonna be this Butler here. And so that was a way for them to actually test whether or not this was actually the medical ninja that they were looking for. I think it was Kurosaki. And so I thought that that was interesting that they went through links like that. But you know, this just really shows you that, you know, for an area like this, you know, the Boruto and them, they gotta get their game up if they're gonna complete a mission like this. If we end this arc and it ends up being a failure, I wouldn't be surprised, because again, when you look at Boruto and Sarada, they expose themselves on a couple of occasions. I mean, they can't really help it. They can't really help it. Boruto more than Sarada. They tell the guy not to be a hero, not to act individually, and yet that's what we're seeing. And so, you know, in closing, I would just like to say I thought that it was interesting. Again, we're getting more information about the Land of Silence, and we're seeing how much further it's fallen into descent, and how Kara has actually taken over this land basically without anybody in the 5 great nations knowing it. So my episode question to you guys is, how do you guys feel about Boruto's actions in this episode? Do you think that he made a mistake when he broke cover, when he was trying to stop Kurosaki from beating that kid? I think so, because again, that's just the norm in this area. Anybody who's been here for a while, they've already known that, hey, you get your shit punched in. So I think that little small stuff like that are negatives for Boruto. And so I also want to know, between Boruto and Sarada, which character do you think handled themselves best on a mission like this? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.